The new Hobbywing XERUN motor for 2018. It's called the V10-Black G3 Brushless motor. I've got a few different ones here. I've got a 13.5, 17.5 and a 4.5, and they're available in lots of other wines as well. New Hobbywing, the G3 Black motor. They've got a little bit of information on it online. One noticeable thing is that you can get it in two case designs, one with lots of large holes and one where a lot of slots cut in it, and the same with the front and the rear part. They say the end plates are big holes, excellent heat dissipation for on-road. The end plates with small holes effectively prevent sand or dirt from getting inside and damaging the motor for off-road. Users can purchase and mount the end plates with big or small holes as per needs. So that's a new thing, but I don't know how many people are going to spend that on different end bells. And compare it to some of the others that I've tested previously. Some of the class leaders that I've got all the results from here, from the R1, I've tested much more's, the Aromax Dash, the really new S+, Orca Blitzream, the new version of the R1, Motive, Phantom, and we can put the Hobbywing results in, and I can compare all the various things of testing from what time in amps, kV, stator resistance, size, weight, Gauss of rotor, etc, etc. So I'm going to do all that. Just briefly then, just compare it to some of the other ones from 2018. Some of them, I've got a couple here. And the main difference now is that all the cutouts, all the exposed windings for cooling, get the air through, keep it cool. No plastic former anymore, so the windings can be nice and tight and low resistance. Plenty of air flow through. Lightweight too, everything's cut away, minimized weight. Good quality connections, high low resistance connection plates all round, and plenty of airflow. The sensor board's held in 3 screws, nice and tight, no movement hopefully. Fully variable timing, all the usual things, good quality, but the rotors vary a lot between them. Some are much stronger than others. So those two there, and then we compare it to the new one from Hobbywing. Big holes all around. You can see the wires through the holes where the air can flow through. Case has been cut away on the actual stator. This is a stator now with printing on it, so that's exposed too, trying to get the heat out. The sensor board, bit unusual, it's got 1 screw in the middle. The other 3 screws are to hold it together. So that's a different sort of design. Sensor wire comes out at the top by these folded over heavy solder tags there. The collector plate is just a ring, outer ring now, which means the air can get through the coils. Some of them, the collectors are much bigger, like on this one here, actually tends to block off the airflow, and some are really big. The Blitzream, which is that one, uses a double collector at the front. This has got I don't know what material that is on this one. They tend to use aluminium. Anyway, they all similar, so we need to find out whether the new one from Hobbywing is better or worse. Engraved on the rotor, it's got a specification. Some of them have that, some don't. This one, the Blitzream one for instance, just says OS or 50 or SO This one's got lots of specification on it, and the reedy one also has 27414, which would be the code solid on the end. On this split ring one's got a hole drilled in the end for some reason. So I'll do the tests, weigh it, test everything, kV, and hopefully it's going to be a good motor. The torque rotor turns fairly easily. The reedy one feels much chunkier, but that's not really the true indication of the strength. We get that when I take it out and measure it. End float, nice, just a little bit of end float, not tight, not loose. The kV of the new Hobbywing 13.5 turn set to 6 amps. kV gives you 3878. (51, 50, 53). Timing, as indicated, goes from 30, 40, 50, 60 on the degrees. The line there showing about 48 degrees. The Hobbywing winding resistance jumping is about 0.25, 0.26, which isn't the lowest we've recorded. Let's try another winding. 2.6 for being generous. As a comparison, that's the Orca Blitzream 0.25. Stator length. There's the tiniest of little cutouts just in one position, just there, where you see the silver brakes. It's the only place all the way around where you can get a caliper in, and the green epoxy insulation doesn't come all the way to the top, so you just have to get it in. And it's about 1957. The all important weight. 132.4. That's way lighter than any other motor we've tested. That is incredibly light. Let's just double check the Blitzream 13.5. 157.6. Well, that is a huge saving in weight. Taking the motor apart, it's quite a tight fit, and you have to maneuver the end up over the tags. It won't pull straight off. Anyway, these are the parts. Well, there's the rotor. Now the rotor has a lot of writing engraved on it. It's got 3 long numbers, a part number and 2 serial numbers. You can't see it, but they are engraved on. It's their own design, not like any others. It's got the step part here, step part at the front. This balance aluminium ring has been epoxied on. You can with white epoxy. It's got a line marked on there, and I think that's where a bit of a balance black epoxy has been put in when they balanced it. It's got a single shim on there. Let's put that down somewhere safe. Looking at the stator, this is a plastic ring that holds the tags on. They're not stapled on. They move up and down, but they do press against the sensor board. There's a plastic piece there that Actually, it's rubber. So a rubber part there that presses against that and holds it into place. The sensor board itself looks like a typical design that's used on so many other motors. Looks very, very similar. The bearing in there and the one in the front's larger than the one in the back. The one at the front is to carry all the load. This doesn't weigh hardly anything. This is very lightweight too. Just a single screw tightens up and holds the sensor board in position. So hopefully that centers itself well enough. I guess it does if it's been made well enough. This is the ones with the big holes in. You can, as I said earlier, you can buy ones without these big hole cutouts. So not much to it. The front collector is tight up against the windings. There's a little paper insulator just to stop it rubbing through. Soldering looks, the wires are twisted and soldered quite well to the plate. Quite a small collector plate compared to some others which really fill the hole right up. So it's just a matter of measuring the Gauss. Let's get the Gauss meter out. Let's just set it to 0. Get the rotor. Just let it snap in. Oh, pretty weak rotor. Only 13, just over 1300. When you consider that the motor, for instance, is 1500 and the latest R1 is 1500, and most of the others, Phantom's over 1500, and only the Orca was 1450. This is a very weak rotor. Must be part of their design, the way it works. So very unusual. So minus 1328, 14. They should be the same for best, but it's fairly close. But I haven't seen a rotor this week for a very long time. It must be part of their design philosophy. The actual length of the rotor, a lot of the other ones have been going longer now. Let's try and get the actual magnetic parts about there. It's about 24 mil, and some of the others have been longer, over 25.5 mil. So it only they've still kept the old design and haven't gone extra long, which gives you a better magnetic field on the windings as it's wider, so you don't lose any strength on the edges. But this is all part of their design philosophy. Also, it'll be lighter in weight when the bigger ones weigh more. Diameter is 12.46. Yes, light. 25.4 grams. Same weight as the one that's in the R1 motor. There's no shimming available on the end by the sensor, so it's fixed as far as it go. Quite a gap between the end of the magnet and the sensors themselves. Normally, when they are moved as close as possible without touching, you normally get the best sensor feedback and the result, but you can't get any closer. It's completely fixed. There's only one shim at the front. To reassemble, you've got to get these tags up under the rim. where it says ABC. So do that, and then it's going to push onto the end of the stator. It's a bit of a fiddle, and then you're going to have to locate this into the bearing, the rotor. So I think you have to be quite careful if you're not going to damage it, because it's very tight fit. After you've got the rotor into the end bearing, now there's a cutout on this side, just one single cutout that lines up with the single cutout on this side, which helps you put it back in the right position, because you've got to line up the screw that's going to come through. It's got to go into one of these tapped holes, so it's a matter of, and it's very tight, so trying to line it up before you screw it all together. Once you've managed to line it up, when you're putting it back together again, now these screws are only 1.5 millimeter, normally they are 2. You get them, pass it down, and they've got to line up with the hole in the other end. If it doesn't line up, they won't go in, so there's no point cross threading. But with a bit of luck, you can line them up. It's not the easiest motor to reassemble, and it will pull up square. If you haven't got it on straight, just be careful that you do them up bit by bit so it pulls the two together square. Otherwise, if you do one up tight, not the other two, you could completely deform one end or the other. And these are only 1.5 millimeter screws, and if you do them up too tight, you might strip the heads out. I wouldn't like to use aluminium screws in here. I reckon the heads would strip out in next to no time. So that feels tight now, so probably a small tap on the end, but it's considering I haven't changed any of the spacing, it's like got virtually no end float now, so I don't know what's happened there. I haven't over tightened it and everything. All the tests down, now the conclusions on the Hobbywing XERUN-V10-G3 Black for 2018. Let's divide them up into the good, the bad and the ugly. Starting with the good. Well, it's a class leader in weight. It's the lowest weight we've ever come across for a 13.5. It's even lower than the Reedy, which I thought was exceptionally lightweight, the S+ of 146 grams. Most motors are around the 157 and 150 gram range, but this Hobbywing's only 132.4 grams, which is amazingly lightweight. Other good points, we're looking at the outside, lots of cooling holes on the large hole version, right from the front going right through the windings, so that's good, very good. Good solder tags. A single 2mm drive screw in the back, so you won't screw that out for adjusting the timing, so that makes it very easy to undo and adjust the timing. Not that you really need to adjust the timing that often. Other good points, well, it looks quite nice. Let's talk about the inside. Well, the coils, the coil resistance, I double checked, it's 0.026 ohms on all windings. Now the coil is king really, the lower the winding the better when you're talking about 17.5s and 13.5 motors. Resistance will cause heating and loss of performance. We've seen them as low as 0.024 on the Reedy and on the R1. So 0.026 is a bit disappointing because 25 Otherwise it's pretty normal, except on a couple such as the Errun Max where they really messed up. What else? Well, performance wise, you've got the kV reading. It did 3,878 at 6 amps. Now the 6 amps was achieved at quite a high timing. Normally you would expect the timing to be below 50 for that sort of performance, or if you have a high timing you expect a higher revs. So slightly unusual. What about the kV and the revs? Well, it's quite high, 3878. These others are doing over 4,000. Some of these later ones, the Reedy Orca R1, the original R1, which had a weaker rotor, was 4.2, much more flatter, 4.1. So it's not that high revving. So what's causing that? You'd think, is it the rotor? Now this is where things get a bit odd. It's got a very weak rotor, only just over 1300 Gauss measured on my meter compared to others. And the Motives, for instance, was virtually 1500. The Phantom over 1500, and the R1 used to be about 1450, and then they changed it recently and upped it to 1500. The Orca 1450, Reedy nearly 1500. So why have they gone back to rotors that are only about 1300, which we saw years ago? Now a rotor like that, is it lightweight? Well, it weighs 25.4 grams. The latest high strength rotors are heavy. Okay, a few grams, 27.5 grams. The R1 though, it's only 25 grams. The Reedy 26, so it's a lightweight rotor, but it's going to spin up quickly, and this sort of low Gauss will give you a very responsive high top end. So maybe they're going for big tracks when you're maintaining high speed. It's going to do well at the top end, but I don't know if it's going to be any of the others. We know ones with very strong magnets, you have to gear them heavy with the big pinions to get a high top speed on big tracks. They're great on smaller tracks and indoor and tons of torque. So that is the oddness of the Hobbywing. What else don't I particularly like? It's quite difficult to take apart and put back together again. I thought the Reedy was up to now was the most difficult, but this is a real fiddle. I don't recommend you take it apart unless you want to spend time trying to line up the holes and get the rotor back into the sensor board. The sensor board looks like the standard design used on loads and loads of other motors. The Reedy had its own design, that was a good sensor board. Bearings, large bearing in the front is good. How's it going to do on the track? Well, we'll wait and see. Hopefully it's going to do very well outdoors on a big track. If your car's overweight, it's a bonus. How will it compare to the others? Well, I don't think it's going to beat some of the class leaders that we've got at the moment. I don't think it's going to beat them indoors, such as the Motive and Phantom high strength ones. Don't think it's going to beat for revs the Reedy or the R1 outdoors, but maybe it'd just be a really good motor everywhere. Only time will tell. It's made very well, professional Hobbywing company. Everything is nicely made, so that's another bonus. Also, I don't think it would be a good choice for 1S. 1S tend to want very high rotor strength, we found from results such as the Motive and the Phantom. So this is definitely, I would say, a 2S touring car motor.